Well, hello friend, and welcome to another episode of The Kingdom Within. I'm out here looking at this glorious view. I didn't quite find the right angle on the hill that I could put me in front of that hill without putting me in the sun, and I'll tell you what, it's a little warm out here, and if I turn it the other way and I stay in the shade, then, well, there's too much shade for my face to even come through on this camera. So, I'm out here at Valley Forge Park. As you can see to the left of me here is a big old house, one of the ones that people used to live in years ago. What I know is that there's just nothing to be except for what it is I am. I get on this podcast a lot to talk to you, but I'm really talking to myself, even though I'm talking to me all the while. Because this is what the Holy Spirit has put me to, is talking about this Jesus. And, well, this weekend I'm right now celebrating him, and well, I celebrate him every day, but kind of taking this weekend as time out to really just contemplate and read a lot of Jesus and receive this Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit tells me one thing and it tells me the other, and shows me that what Jesus said is true, but it shows me even a greater truth. And so sometimes it's hard to talk about one when you're seeing the other. Because, you know, I want to talk about love all the time. That's all I want to talk about, is how that the more love you give, the more love you receive. And that's the greatest gift that you can receive and the greatest gift you can give. And since that's the greatest thing you can receive, well, there's just nothing else better to receive. I just love what it is my Father's given me, and I'll tell you, I don't have a whole lot left anymore, but I have this voice that I call the Holy Spirit, and what it does is it teaches me how to give more and ask for less, and, well, because I have it, it allows me to know that my Father loves me and that I'm doing the right thing. Even if others would say it's the wrong thing, because believe me, people in my life didn't believe that, well, that I hear the Holy Spirit, but it really doesn't even matter anymore. What matters is that I have a lot of joy in my life, and it allows me to have less and give more and not feel less for it. Because that's what Jesus said. Jesus said that, you know, it's important that we try to be like him, and so therefore I've been spending time trying to be like him and figure out exactly what he meant and everything he said, and let this Holy Spirit reveal it to me. And that's what he showed me, is that being less is being more. I'm being less for the world, but I'm being more for my Father, and my Father is your Father, because he's the Father in heaven. Jesus told us, he said, call no man Father but your Father in heaven. It's the reason sometimes I have trouble with these priests getting called Father, but, you know, it is what it is. Jesus said that he would speak and they would not hear. It's kind of like that bread and grape juice. I got to tell you, I don't really participate in that. I never really have, of eating Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I think it's great that you do that as a symbol. But Jesus came as the Word. And so therefore, what I see is, if I eat the Word of Christ, well then, I'm eating his body and drinking his blood. What he told me is that what it is I need to do is to do what he asks, and if I do what he asks, I would find out what he was talking about, and I have. And I see the truth of the world is to come to know love by experience, and I know that doesn't make any sense to anyone that doesn't know this Jesus, because, well, you see all this hate flying around everywhere, and everybody's judging each other, and even the Christians are doing it often. I'm not judging anybody. Here's the problem. I can't make any judgments anymore. My Father gives me this truth that I'm supposed to give, and because I give it, he receives it, and because he receives it, I give it. But I really don't have anything else to give except what it is I receive from him, because, well, I just see that there is no point in it anymore except for the point it has. Friend, looking at this world got causing me a lot of suffering, because, well, when I was being of spirit and I let Jesus turn my heart to flesh, well, looking at all of these people suffering everywhere was causing me a lot of pain. And because it was causing me pain, well, I kept trying to go back to ignoring the pain, and this love of Christ wasn't making any sense to me because I wasn't seeing the truth of what Jesus said. And only when I became willing to die in order to live did he start showing me the truth, and even then he took it away because, well, I turned from him again. I let people tell me that this voice is actually an illness, and therefore I let them slap a label on me and put me on medication so that I couldn't even hear my own thoughts. The problem is that didn't make my life any better. It just made me not hurt as much. And, well, in the end, because of that, I guess it made my life better. But what happened is he's given me this Holy Spirit, and this time, well, through some help of some people and some things that I learned that it's okay for me to have this voice. And, well, I quit taking that medication and went back to listening to God. And I'll tell you, it was a hard time figuring it out because I'll tell you, I got no support. But Jesus said you wouldn't get any support when you were going through this process. Well, because when you receive the Holy Spirit and other people don't believe you can, because if they believe that you could, then they'd have to believe they could. So it's right that they don't believe that you can, because otherwise they think they'd have to receive it for themselves. And Jesus told you that I'm going to speak and they won't hear lest they turn and be forgiven. So if they hear, then they would have to turn and be forgiven. Well, that's the problem. Not everybody's ready for forgiveness yet. And because they're not ready for it, my Father can't give them what it is they don't want for themselves because, well, they're still discovering who they are by experience. And that's what happens, except for when we do it without our Father, what ends up happening is we think that wrong things are right and right things are wrong, and we make a mess of everything, just like we have on this planet, friend. You can see it as much as I can. I don't blame anybody for it. I see that it's all our fault, including my own. But what the Holy Spirit showed me is I don't need to blame anybody, because if I blame anybody, I blame my Father. You hear me say that almost every episode, because every judgment I make against you or me, I make against Him. Because He's the one who created all this, and therefore the only way to peace is to not judge. Jesus told us, He said, do not judge. You don't know how to judge. Only my Father knows how to judge. Yet the Father's declared us not guilty, but He won't declare it for us until we declare it for ourselves. And I know that doesn't make sense to most folks, but it just is what it is. He knew what was going to happen even before He put the fruit in the garden, and He chose to put it there, so He's just as guilty as us if you look at it that way. Except He's not guilty at all. My Father, He's just everything, and therefore there's nothing He isn't, and since He's everything, well then we're nothing. Except there's this seed of Him in us. Jesus said that. He said there was a little bit of all of my Father in everybody, and well, there's a little bit of that Satan too, and some have more of one and less of the other, but it just depends on where it is you've gone and life experiences you've had. But the truths He showed me, He doesn't show me the truth, He just shows me that all these truths that I thought were true are just a bunch of lies. Because there is only one truth, and that is that God is. And the other truth is that which we choose is what we have, and we choose to allow others to suffer, then He's going to allow us to suffer. And that kind of brings up that revelations that's coming. It's not about my Father's angry, but because we make these choices that are going to be the ones He gives to us, and because we get them, well, we're going to receive them. But we had a choice. We could have not done it. And if I look at any of that, well, that was the reason I had a hard time, because He showed me those things, and then I got afraid, and then I ran from Him again because I thought God's love. And I couldn't make any sense of that any more than I make sense of Him allowing us to hurt each other. But now it makes sense to me because He showed me the truth of what it is that He's doing and why it is He does it. And for me to talk about it doesn't make any sense. So it's something that you have to become willing to die in order to live. And then because you seek my Father first and put Him before everything, He will give you what it is you need so that you can accomplish this task of being what it is you are, even though you are nothing at all. Friend, I'm up in the sun. I think I'm going to back my chair up. Well, you might have just noticed that the wall moved. It was getting hot in that sun. Well, I'll tell you what. My father just showed me that because he is, we have to be, because if we're not, then he has nothing to love, and because he has nothing to love, well then, there's just nothing to love. But I'll tell you what, quite often, people that are Christian, they don't put a lot of logic to their truth, and they allow other people to tell them what it is they need to hear instead of letting this Holy Spirit give it to them. Because my father showed me a lot of things, because I had a lot of questions, because I'm not a smart man, but I can put 2 plus 2 together to make 4 most of the time. And I could figure out that, well, all these Christians are saying that we're going to be allowed into this kingdom and we can come with all the pride and all that. All we had to do is believe in Jesus. But that isn't what Jesus said. And not only that, but that's that thought of Satan. See, you talk about this thought of Satan being thrown out of my Father's kingdom for pride. So how are we getting in if our spirit is full of pride? These are the things I'm talking about. So I needed a higher truth so that I could accept the truth that I have. And my father showed it to me, and I'll tell you, I'm the prodigal son, except for I'm just nothing, because when Jesus came and he was the firstborn and he inherited my father's kingdom, but my father, well, gave it to Jesus, and you know Jesus, he's going to give it to us. He isn't looking to make slaves of us. He wanted us to be servants to each other so that we could come and serve him, so that we could serve my Father, and because we're serving them, well, we'll be serving each other. This is called love, friend. It's what our purpose is. And so that purpose has just become the greatest purpose to me, and that's what I do. I try to figure out how to give love in every step of the way, and I'm not perfect at it. My father has not stopped putting things in my life that need forgiveness from me and from him, and for forgiveness for others. That's just the way that is, but this isn't about perfection. It never was. Jesus came to show you that. He came to show you the truth of who it is you are. If you followed his path, well, you found out the truth of who you are, because you found out the truth of who my Father is. But if you didn't do the things Jesus asked, then you still don't know that. Because I'm telling you, to be the least among you is to be better than no one. And to better than no one's means you can't judge. Because if I judge one as more, then I have to judge another as less. And because I'm more than one and less than another, well, then I've judged my Father in that statement. So now I'm in this dilemma where I live in this world that's full of judgment, and that's how everybody knows themselves, by experience. But if I want to know the love of my Father and I want to keep this Holy Spirit, then I have to let that judgment go and accept the fact that even when I see one thing, I know the truth of another, and that is what my Father showed me. So it doesn't matter what I see anymore. The question is, what do I know? And what I know is what's in my heart, and that is that my Father loves me, and he loves you, and he loves all of us. So I don't come as a son because you're his son or daughter too. There's just none of us that aren't his son or daughter. On the first page of Revelation, it did call Jesus the only begotten Son, meaning the only one born of Spirit, which tells you that he was a blueprint to the kingdom. But the other thing it says on that first page of Revelations, it says the firstborn Son. It would not say the firstborn if there wasn't a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. And each person that chooses to become it can become it for themselves. Yet you can't become anything. It's the Father that becomes it for you. Friend, if I turn from him for a second, I find myself afraid and making decisions based on fear and based on this world has meaning when it has no meaning except the one my Father gives it. And therefore, that's the one I choose now. And that is what it is, even though it's nothing at all. So that's the point that my Father's given me, because it's the point I want for myself. Yet if I choose differently, then he'll choose it different for me. But if I choose it different, then I have to go back to being a slave to that thought of Satan, which is selfishness and fear, and I just don't want it. I want no parts of it anymore, even though I still get a little of it. Here's the problem. This is what he showed me. because I was trying to figure out how to not be selfish. Turns out you can't really do that very well. However, if you start seeing the truth of what Jesus said and you do what he asked, you'll find out that serving yourself is best served by serving the Father and the firstborn Son, and therefore serving all my Father's children. And when you serve them, you're actually serving yourself, because you will feel better about yourself and you will feel the love of the Father within you and receive this Holy Spirit. And then a greater joy will you find. And then when that thought of Satan comes along, you'll be saying, "Get away from me, Satan. I don't want a part of you anymore. You've got nothing for me." It's not that it was wrong, it was right, because my Father created it so that it could deceive us, so that we could not know who we are, so that we could find out who we are by coming to know who he is. That's the game of life. But that only makes sense if you decide that you're going to make the purpose of the world is to come to know love by experience, and that my Father is the greatest love. And if you choose him as the greatest love, then a greater love will be given. But you can't really understand that about him until you get to understand that firstborn, because the firstborn said it all. He told you all that. He told you about this love. He gave you all these different commandments to do, and then if you'd have done them, well, the greater your love becomes, the more you see that this eternal hell makes no sense. You see that the love of the Father is greater than your love, and if you start forgiving those that condemn you, well, then how it is that you're going to then choose to be afraid of a Creator that loves everything he creates? But these are the things you had to go through. But Jesus told you, by no means does he tell you to not live by those commandments. So I'm telling you those commandments are true. But I'm telling you, if you want this kingdom, then it's time to make the choice to hang all the laws and the prophets on only 2 commandments. And if you hang them on one, you hang them on the other. Jesus said that. I've just been reading, or not reading, listening to. I posted it on my Kingdom Within Facebook page. The commands of Jesus, and then another one I posted on there was some ones about the parables of Jesus. Well, over and over again, and one of the things that it says in there, and it says it in the Bible because I read it all the time, and that is that one commandment is like the other. Those 2 commandments were everything hanging on it. But if you don't hang everything on those 2 commandments, you can't have the truth. The problem is, the greater your love becomes, the more love you have to give and the more love you have to receive. But until you receive it, you can't give it. You can't give it until you receive it. And friend, I work out there in the world with people that have been through a lot of trauma and suffering, and I can tell you that, well, when you've been through a lot of trauma and suffering and you see all this hate in the world and the things that's been done to you, you can't see this light. It's through us, the ones that say that we know Jesus, we're supposed to give this light. So what I'm doing is I'm just being the light that he has me give and be, because, well, it's not my light, it's his. I can't claim credit for it. That's the problem anymore. I'm kind of in a field, everybody says thank you, and I can't be like Jesus, 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 but I've started taking up that saying my boss says, because it works real good, I guess, and sometimes I say, to God the glory. Because that's all there is. There's just God's glory, and he's got all the glory, and because he's got it all, we've got none, yet because he's got it all, we've got it all for him. And I know we want to know who we are by experience, but friend, if you'd really look at the truth of who you are, you'll probably figure out that, well, you really didn't want to be that. You just didn't know what else to be yet. And that Jesus can teach you how to do it. And I come as a servant, not as a son, because all of you are sons and daughters. Well, then I'm just another servant, and what I'm doing isn't anything special. I'm doing exactly what it is Jesus told me to do. And Jesus said, why do you expect great reward for anything? A servant's job is a servant's job, and well, that's just my job. So I speak this truth of love and the love of truth so that I can give it to my Father, but the truth of the matter is it's his, it's not mine. But because it's his, it is mine, and because it's mine, it's his, and therefore whatever it is he wants, he can have, because I just don't want anything that he doesn't give to me, because, well, it just always causes me more suffering the more I get attached to things, and Jesus told us that whatever we possess possesses us. So if I have to hold on to something for him, then I'll hold on to it because it's his to have, and if he takes it from me, then it'll be gone and he'll give me something new. And I was told I couldn't have this kind of faith and I couldn't live in this eternal moment of now, and I had to plan out my entire life and figure it out so that I didn't starve to death in my old age. Friend, I don't care about my old age. If I have to live in fear to the end of my days, then let it go now. Because what I've come to find is this truth of love and love of truth, which is far greater than all of this fear stuff. And I'm looking around at this world and they're talking about retirement. I don't see any retirement coming for me, friend. That just is the way it is. It isn't right or wrong. We keep making bad decisions. And when we make bad decisions, we let other people make bad decisions for us, and because we're too busy worrying about what it is we have, we just let the world do what it does. And well, this nation was a free nation. It declared itself one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And friend, there isn't justice for all. There never was, but there's really not now, because this money and corporations have become the thing of the hour. And everybody's future is dependent on these corporations, because our stocks have become our bonds. So God has become our money, and our money has become our God, and that doesn't work. That isn't what Jesus said. So you just know that there's a price behind all that. Unless there's not. It doesn't matter. Jesus told you that when you came to love him, that the world would hate you for it. So I don't expect anyone to love my message except for those that love my Father. And those that love my Father, well, they will love me even if they don't agree with me. They might even really dislike me, but they'll love me anyway because Jesus told them to. They'll forgive me my debts just as I've forgiven theirs. I can't hold you accountable without holding myself accountable, because if I judge you, I judge me, and if I judge me, I judge you, and when I judge either of us, I judge my Father for creating it. And I say these things a lot on here because these are the truths that I live by and what I've been shown. And so every judgment I make against my Father, and therefore if I want my Father's kingdom, I got to make no judgment. Instead, I got to make the judgment Jesus gave me, and that is to forgive, forgive, forgive. So love, non-judgment, and forgiveness is what my life needs to be about, and it doesn't matter whether I get it perfect. Friend, I told you I come from the dark, so let me tell you what, I've been riled up here or there, but you know what? I always turn and ask for forgiveness pretty much instantaneous at this point, and I just don't want anything except what he gives me, and he's been giving me a lot less, so I have a lot less to worry about. In fact, that last sewage flood in my basement pretty much took most of everything left that I had to worry about, and now I don't have much to worry about. But he'll replace it with whatever it is I need in my life to get me to where he wants me to be for him. Because I'm for him, because he's for me, and that's just the way it is, and I know it in my heart. This Holy Spirit tells me so. And because I know that if you receive it, you'd have to choose it, and you don't want to choose it, so you won't believe that I've received it, and that's okay. I understand that. My Father showed me that there is no glory in doing what it is that I'm doing for him, because people aren't going to believe a word of it, and it doesn't even matter. The only thing that matters is that because I have the Holy Spirit, through the Holy Spirit, I receive the love I need in order to accomplish this task. And if I just keep coming and don't turn from him, then he won't turn from me, because he never turned from me. I just kept thinking he did. Because every time I acted badly, well, I thought he was upset with me, and it turns out it's not him upset with me, it was me upset with him. And well, I was afraid to admit that I was angry at God, but I kept going to that door and banging on it. See, Jesus talked about that. I just seen it again in that video today. Jesus talked about that when you go knocking on the door to the kingdom, wanting bread from God, not to knock lightly or to give up immediately, because he told you that the Father will be slow coming to the door, like your neighbor sleeping. And so what that means is, it's not really that he's slow coming, it's just you're slow really wanting to know the truth, because once you get this truth and this Holy Spirit, well, the only way you get it in its entirety is if you're willing to die in order to live, and it takes an awful lot of wanting to live to want to die. And well, before I ended up wanting to live, there was a point where I wanted to die, friend. This world hasn't brought me a lot of joy in the years before coming to my Father. All kind of trials and tribulations and things not going right, and me watching people hurt each other. Even when I was trying to do the right thing, I was watching everybody else do the wrong thing, and I kept thinking to myself, they're suffering so bad, how could my Father even be? Yet he showed me all along, and I knew it at the core of my being, even though I didn't want to believe, because the way things were going, I knew that there was a higher truth, I just couldn't find it. And now he's giving it to me, and the way he gives it to me is through this Holy Spirit, and I have it, and it talks to me, and I talk to it, and we just do what we do. But it doesn't give me the truth. It takes all truth from me, and then it gives me a new truth, and the new truth is that God is, and anything I choose is mine to have, except for I have to pay the price if that's what it is I want, and I'm through paying the price, friend. Jesus told you in that parable about where you allow the Holy Spirit in, and then you go back out into they go out into dry, arid places, and then they come back, and when they find your house empty and clean, they'll bring 7 more spirits even worse, and the condition of the man will be worse than the first. Friend, I've been down that path. I'm the prodigal son. I didn't get this first time around. I've been seeking this thought for a long time. And now he's given it to me and taught me how to use it. I'm not letting it go because it's the voice of my Father. You say that it's not, but it is, because, well, Jesus told you that my Father's everything. He's of spirit. There is no Father in the way that you understand this thought of the Father. The thought of the Father is consciousness, but its body is everything and nothing. And I can't explain it to you, because what I saw, I'll never be able to put into words, so therefore it has no meaning except the meaning it has, and the meaning it has is what he gave to me, and that's what I have. But because he has no body, he has all body, and therefore he can have mine to do with as he will, and that is to teach love, because there's just not a greater purpose. And that's the purpose I have now, because that's the purpose I have. I just don't need any other purpose. Love is what my Father's purpose is, and so therefore it's mine. In the beginning there was only God, and he wanted to know the truth about himself. What do you think he wanted to know about himself? I can tell you what he wanted to know about himself. He wanted to know the experience of love. Him loving himself by loving us, and by us loving him, we love ourselves through him. And then we come to hate ourselves, meaning we hate our own selfishness. However, love is the only thing that really mattered, and that's all he's ever after. He's farming love. But what happens is we get to that point. How y'all doing? We get to that point where the love of Christ kind of peaks out. And because my Father is farming love, well, love is what he's after, and when that love reaches its peak, well then, it's time to take his crop. Now, I'm not here to talk about all of that, but what I want you to do is to choose to be the crop, because, well, if the light keeps getting brighter, then the crop isn't mature. But what happens is, when we as people that knew Jesus stop given the love of Christ, well, it stops growing, because this world's a hard place to live, and if somebody isn't teaching us a little bit about love, and I'm not talking about just saying the words Jesus, I'm talking about doing what he did, because I'm going to tell you what, the people that saved me weren't the ones that were spouting Jesus. The ones that really saved me never said much about it. I just knew who they were and what they believed, and because they were treating me with kindness and forgiveness, I just decided that I wanted what they had. It's not about the words. I'm here speaking, but that makes it dangerous for me because that pride would love to get a hold of me, and so I have to give everything to my Father and ask nothing for it. Because if I take any credit for this, that thought of pride will get a hold of me, and that is my thought of Satan, and it will wreak havoc in my life because it does every time I've allowed myself to think something of myself. But what I've come to see is my Father's everything, and therefore I am nothing. Jesus literally meant it when he said, "Of myself I am nothing, it is the Father who doeth the works. Not even the words I speak are on my behalf, but on the behalf of the Father who sent me." And so now I see the truth of it. And there is a price that we're going to pay for our causing other people suffering, but Jesus didn't tell you that you were going to get out of that just because you believed in him. If you would get a hold of this message and read what he said instead of letting other people lie to you, you would see that over and over again he said he was going to deny his own disciples at the end of the age. And those are the ones that were casting out demons and doing all this stuff in his name. That's because they didn't ever get to understand what a demon was. They're still trying to cast out something that has no power except for the power it has, and the power it has is the power we give it. Love casts these demons out. It doesn't matter whether our bodies are broken or not, friend. My body isn't healed, except in some ways. My Father's pretty amazing. I just don't know what he's ever going to do. I just keep riding this out and see what happens. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't even matter. Because love is the way, and if I make that my path, it's the only path that matters. And even if he has to come and take his crop because, well, the light of Christ is done growing, well, then I'm going to be in that crop because that's what I've chose, because that's what my Father's given me. Even though he gives me nothing except for what it is I choose for myself, I've just learned to choose that instead of this world. But Jesus taught me that, so I'm not here to speak on my behalf. I'm here to speak on behalf of the love of Christ, which is the love of that Jesus. So what I know is I end up having all this peace and love, and I don't might have much, but I have exactly what it is I need. Because I have it, he has it for me. Because I can't hold this love. This love that is his is too great for me to hold on my own. Forgiveness is not an easy task for me. I have to have him forgive for me. Only when I'm looking at his truth can I let my truth go. Well, friend, that sun has moved back on to me again, and I keep moving, and that shade keeps moving with me. So I think I'm going to get off here and, well, just may God bless you and yours. Know that because my Father loves you, I love you. Because you're worth loving. Because if my Father loves me, he'll just love anybody. That's just the way that is. I'm telling you, every person on this planet is my neighbor, and every neighbor is loved by my Father, and therefore you are my brother or my sister. I don't care what country you come from or what language you speak. I don't care what color you are. None of those things matter. Me and you were both children of my Father. And therefore I'll give you love and respect because that's what my Father wants me to give to you so that I can give it to him. All right, friend. May God bless you and yours.